an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering One Piece, episodes 380 and 381. Binks Booze, the song that connects the past with the present. And a new crewmate, the musician Humming Brook. In these episodes, I won't say that I had dry eyes the whole time. That's as close as I'm getting to admitting that I wept openly. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
And I'm Trish.
Hey! Those listening, there may be a little bit of a lag because I think that there's a disconnect. So when I introduce myself, there's a good 4 or 5 seconds before you introduced yourself. I think that we have a bit of a internet lag between us. So that's what may be going on. But I always take the sound off of Crowdcast. So normally I can sort of line things up if I have 2 different files, but I won't be able to do that this time. So everybody just bear with us on that. But I'm just going to pause extra long and assume that Trish is going to chime in. Thank you very much for joining me. Tell me why you chose these episodes, you cruel, cruel soul.
Well, I mean, what you're implying there is the primary reason is these episodes make me weep. I rewatched them this morning for this episode, and I cried a lot. And it's funny because these episodes really stick out to me, and I really wanted to be the one to talk to you about them. It just feels funny to be doing it also because this is one of, I don't want to say this is a bad arc of One Piece, but I would say in the annals of arcs of One Piece, Thriller Bark is not one I'm usually interested in revisiting very much.
Okay.
It's kind of more meh for me.
Okay.
But this episode, all the Brook stuff is fantastic. It's so good. These episodes are so good. And it's almost enough to make me forget the parts of the middle where I was just kind of like,
Yeah, I can definitely see myself looking back, conflating enjoying Brook with being Thriller Bark was a good arc, even though I really enjoyed Thriller Bark. I didn't love the ending. I felt like it fell a little bit flat, but I still really enjoyed it. But yeah, I think that Brook does a lot of heavy lifting on this.
He does.
You guys, man. So last week, I fucking just cried talking about Laboon because it was making me think of how I'm going to have to give up Sam eventually. And that was just devastating. This couple of episodes, it was like a 1-2 punch of the whole Laboon abandonment and the guilt and wanting to get back to him. And then also really getting to see what Brook went through. And I really feel like if I were a kid watching this, it would not hit me the same way. There is just something about the energy of this when you have got grown enough that you have begun to lose people in your life that makes it hit so much harder. I was just not ready, kids. I didn't think that we were going to see any more of Brook's past, honestly. I thought that finding out about his connection with Laboon was going to be kind of it. And when this started, this section, and I saw that we were going to be spending more time with him again, I was really surprised thinking, wait, does he already get reunited with Laboon? Because I didn't I thought if we were with him, that was going to have to be the focus. I didn't think there was enough interest in what happened with him and his crewmates to keep a whole couple of episodes afloat, basically. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. So I'm going to start this episode so we can have it on in the background. But I just want to mention that on Funimation, this episode is called Binks's Booze, but on Hulu, it's called Binks's Brew.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. That it's a bit of confusion, and I can tell why they went with the Binks's Brew, because the way they translated the song, brew was in there for a rhyme. Originally,
okay.
a lot of the fans will call the song Binks's Sake instead, because that's what it is originally. I get why they changed it from sake to brew. Brew's a lot easier to rhyme in English, and also just sake doesn't have the same kind of cultural attachment.
Yeah,
that
definitely.
Some calling something like Binks's Brew would in English. I think they personally, I don't know how other people are going to react. I think they translated the song really well in terms of how you adapt. It's really hard to adapt Japanese songs in an anime into English and have it not sound terrible.
Yeah.
Because, you're dealing with different rhythm, you're dealing with different syllabic meters, things like that. What rhymes, what doesn't is going to change. And I think they handled it well. And also Ian Sinclair, who plays the dub voice for Brooke, is just, he has a really great singing voice.
He's amazing.
Just a good voice in general.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I was figuring that it was Binks's Booze on Funimation because they don't care as much about trying to make the titles kid appropriate. Maybe brew is sort of ambiguous enough about it being alcohol that they felt like it was more appropriate. But it's not as far as I have noticed, the episodes on Hulu have Sanji sucking a lollipop instead of a cigarette. So I don't know how preoccupied they actually are with that. I really agree, though. I was thinking about... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it could be a case of on Funimation, on somewhat services, it says Binks's Booze because they had it up there before the dub got there. And so when the dub got there, originally they're just translating it and they're like, oh, we'll call it Binks's Booze. And then the dub gets there and they're like, well, we can't, Binks's Booze is not going to rhyme as well as Binks's Brew. So they changed that. And then the title is just left the same because it's an artifact of the original translation.
That would make sense. Okay. I accept that. Yeah, I was thinking the same, thinking about the aspect of the translation. In the original, is the tune basically the same? Or is the tune different as well?
Please don't quote me on this. I believe the tune is the same.
Okay.
It's the lyrics that, were adapted and changed.
Okay. Yeah, that is something that even translating from a song in Spanish to English can be pretty tricky. And, Spanish has a lot of the same syllables, even words that sound so similar in English that you can sometimes stick with the same rhyming scheme and everything. And that's still very tricky, even just because of sort of jokes in another language don't necessarily translate well. So you have to almost invent a whole new joke for that spot in the song sometimes. So yeah, I just was fascinated by how well this song worked in the context of it being a nostalgic link for Brooke, because that's what music is for so many of us, is you listen to songs that remind you of the best parts of your life so far, the times where you felt the happiest or the most secure, or and I enjoy when something is able to get that energy across, because it's a difficult thing to do when you're watching a movie or a TV show where you weren't there for everything. Brooke, we're finding out about his history, and the goal here is to get us back to the present where he's singing the song and have us understand how he's feeling as he's playing the song. And that's a really like tall order to have us in the same headspace as him, you know? And I feel like they really managed it quite well. Are you
They
really
did,
weird
and they kind
aside
of did it
question? No, sorry, go ahead. This is the lag.
I was gonna say, yeah. I was gonna say, I think they managed to pull that off simply because they used Binks's Brew, this song, as a kind of perfect trying to think like a thread between all these different points of his life, between his time with the pirates, his time with Laboon, his time alone on the ship as a skeleton, and now in the present. And it weaves all of those things together because each of them are connected to this song and all the different points of his life, and so they're able to jump back and forth in a way that feels pretty seamless and allows you to get a lot of information about his life and a lot of context really clearly. And the juxtaposition of him at his happiest with his crewmates and him alone in horrible isolation for decades is just, yeah.
It's too much. What I had been going to ask you, and I know this is kind of an off-topic question, but you know that's just how I do. Are you a reader of the Hunger Games series?
I have read the Hunger Games series. It has
Did you read A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, the latest one to come out that they're making a movie of?
Oh. No, I didn't even know that existed.
Okay, it weirdly did kind of fly under the radar.
Yeah, I read the Hunger Games series back in like 2011, 2012-ish, and saw the movies when they came out and was largely like, all right, those were okay adaptations, I guess. And then like it's just kind of been off my radar otherwise. So I wasn't aware there was a fourth book apparently.
Yeah, it's a prequel. And it's about President Snow as like a teen. A real weird choice, in my opinion. And I read it and I didn't hate it, but I will say that the audiobooks for the original trilogy they were originally read by somebody else, but they've been reread by Tatiana Maslany, the actress who plays She-Hulk and who was in Orphan Black. She's excellent. And I think that maybe because of the movies, they had the actual tune for some of the songs that happen throughout the books because Katniss sings a number of different times. So when Tatiana is reading the audiobook to you, she will actually sing during those moments instead of just reading the words. And it makes those moments like 1,000% more haunting. And then I read Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which has a male audiobook narrator, and they do not have the music for the songs he's reading. And that story, just for anybody who's interested, relies so much more heavily on music for its storyline than the original trilogy. But he's just reading these song lyrics repeatedly over and over with no tune and no real context, like in the moment, and it doesn't work. And I was really startled because I have a hard time sometimes when I'm reading something that has lots of poetry or lots of song breaks. Like Lord of the Rings is a classic example where just everything causes people to break into song, and it's fucking like, 2 full pages of poetry, and you're just like, yeah, okay, I get it. The trees were very yellow. But when you're hearing it, the effect that it has when it's well done and the music like catches you and there's an energy to it, oh my God, it's just beyond belief. And it was remarkable to me how well I responded to it in the context of the one book where she's actually singing it, and then the narrator just reading the words. I wanted to reach through the pages and strangle the author for doing this to me. I was just like, we don't care. Stop telling me the words of this song. So when this one starts, like the title of this episode is like the song that, brings his life together, I was like, boy, songs, I guess. Even though I know, like, we have seen the way that Brooke, like, he sings, he plays instruments, like, we know that he's good at that, but I just went into it with such a bad attitude. And I was really shown what a bitch I can be. In summary, the show said, go sit down.
I mean, listen, we can all be bitches sometimes.
It's really remarkable. If my attitude, like, if you can turn me around when I come into something with a bad attitude and you can make me go, all right, I was really wrong, you must have been excellent, because my attitude can sink a ship.
Oh, yeah.
I swear to
100%.
God. You know, like, anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
From the chat, Florian said that he has really enjoyed listening to the song both in English, German, and the original Japanese. He said they're all great. Jessica agrees that the translation was really well done and that it couldn't have been easy. And Gus said that apparently in an interview or one of the SBS things in the manga, Oda wrote that Binks' Sake was written ahead of the arc, and he basically wrote the arc so he could include the song or something to that effect. And that's,
I love
honestly,
that energy.
I can see that. I'd forgotten. It's been a while since I've seen these episodes. When I got to the point in the song when they say, like, it gets to the point where it's basically like, hey, you know, we all die someday, so just have a good time being a pirate on the open seas while you're doing it. And the way that's described as, one day you'll become a skeleton. And I was just like, oh, that feels like that moment when, like, the lyrics and the music kind of hit in a way you're like, I am very impressed you managed to pull that off, and I wasn't even expecting it.
Yep. I like the idea of writing a song and being like, I have to do something to fit this in. I love this shit. Like, this is a banger. I'm writing an arc for it. What a great way to do things.
Definitely. But yeah, it's just, I mean, the thing we're skipping around a bunch, but the thing that hits me the most from this episode, like, that sticks to me the most, is them all playing the song together as they're dying on the ship.
Oh my God.
And he narrates as it goes from a quartet to a trio to a duet, and then he's upset that he's left the accompaniment by himself. And it's like, oh, it's just heart-wrenching.
And it would have been so easy for that moment to be almost silly, because it is kind of silly, like, just in a vacuum.
It is. They all got poisoned and they're all dying at the same time. And they're like, one by one as they're singing, and they all agreed to sing in their final moments. Like, it is silly, but it was just there was something almost understated about it, which is not something I say about this show very often. But I think it was the performance of Brooke when he is with his friends who are dying. There's no, like, screaming to the heavens. There's no, I can't believe this is happening. He's just playing and, like, acknowledging that one of them has fallen, but he doesn't stop, and he doesn't, like, there's just very little melodrama about the way he reacts to it. And I think that's part of what sort of got under my skin. And then the part that stuck with me, and I'm definitely going to start crying, so sorry about this. I don't like crying when there's somebody else on the chat with me, so sorry about it, Trish. The dream that they are alive again. Oh,
you guys, anybody who has lost someone,
so rude.
There is no way that you haven't had a dream that they are alive again. It's just part of losing someone. And it's always so weird. Like, I dream about my dad a lot, and in the dream, I'm always like, oh my God, we haven't talked in so long. Why haven't I given you a call? It's like, I know we haven't talked, but the fact that he's gone isn't part of the memory. It's just this vague sense of, like, oh my God, you haven't met Owen. I can't believe that I didn't bring you to meet Owen. Things like that. And then I wake up and it's like kind of losing him again, you know? And it's just, it's like, I don't know what I would rather, not having those dreams so I don't have to experience the waking up, but having them, it's like a little bit of a piece of him again. So I don't know what I would rather have, you know, but that moment of like, he really thinks I hurt myself when I fell, that proves it's not a dream. And of course, we as viewers are like, Brooke, I don't know how to tell you this, buddy, but that's definitely a dream. And yet it goes on for just long enough that you start to be like, wait, what is going on here? And then he looks up and they're gone. Y'all, stab me in the heart. Like that.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I mean, I've definitely had that kind of experience before as well. But I'm currently recording from a different place than I did the last couple times because I'm going to be doing a big move from the West Coast to the East Coast soon. And before that, I'm staying. I've been here now a month with my parents, trying to get to spend some time with them. My dad has a very aggressive form of brain cancer, and
oh God, I'm so sorry.
I wanted to spend some time with him before I'm going to move across the country. And yeah, and it's, I don't know what's going to happen, you know. So I get what you mean. I definitely get what you mean. But I mean, this episode brings out emotions like that because it is about loss, and it's not about it in a big melodramatic way. It's about it in a very quiet way, and feels very silly to be talking about things like this with One Piece of all shows. But like, that's part of why One Piece is good, is because it can occasionally dig into really deep, real emotions, and this is not the last time it's going to do that.
Yeah.
But it's I don't know, it's powerful. It's one of the reasons I love Brooke so much is as a character. He's actually I'd say he's probably my third favorite Straw Hat. Like, he's deep in my heart, and he's this fun, silly, wacky character, and yet he's also this character that like will have those moments of solemnity. He will, you know, I don't know, there's an emotional richness and a texture to him that a lot of the other characters don't have as much. And I don't know, he's just a treat. He's just a treat to have. Gus says some of the main thematics of Thriller Bark surrounding loss and depression and how people cope with it. Moria and Brooke being two of the biggest examples. Very different reactions to losing your crew. And yeah, that's
right.
True. I wasn't there for when you talked about Moria, but yeah, Moria's whole thing is built around the fact that he's doing this, he did all this because he lost his crew. And this was his horrifying way of responding. I mean, you have the whole thing with, oh God, what's his name? Dr. Hogback and the zombie lady who threw plates. I can't remember her name, which, God, that had some really creepy, disgusting undertones.
Sindri. Yes. It always takes me ages to get to her name. It's in there somewhere.
But yeah, I mean, like the first episode, it is just Brooke's backstory, getting to get a better handle on the timeline of it, and the emotional texture of it, and him accepting Luffy's offer to join the crew.
Yeah,
for real. Also, the learning that he had a tone dial that he bought off a merchant ages ago.
Yes,
that he keeps in his head. And it has the recording of their last time playing that song, so he can play it for Laboon when he sees Laboon again, which that is just so the extra mile and sad.
This is another thing that got me. First of all, one of the things that I'm going to give you a piece of advice here while your dad is still around, and that is take as much video as you can. Because you will start to lose what they sounded like, and some of the like turns of phrase they used or things like that. I really wish I had more video of my dad, but you know, he died before everybody had videos in their pockets all the time or cameras in their pockets. So it wasn't as easy to do. But I wish so much that I had gotten video of him and of my grandmother. And I can't emphasize enough to everybody listening, honestly, if you have loved ones still around, get them on tape, doing whatever, like even mundane stuff. That's almost the best, you know? So I had on my phone 2 voicemails, one from my father and one from my grandma, both of them singing me happy birthday. And I had these for about 8 months. And then one day I woke up and they were gone. And it turned out that like after a certain amount of time, voicemails just get automatically deleted from your phone. Now, evidently, there's a lot longer of a buffer nowadays than there used to be, because I've got some that are years old in my voicemail still. But those were deleted, and I like got in touch with the phone company, was like, can I get those back? And there was no way. And I was devastated. So, yeah, highly, highly recommend voice record. Like the fact that Brooke did that, it just reminded me of that. And I was like, I hope he doesn't lose that, because if he loses it before he gets a chance to like at least play it for Laboon, but also I'm sure he just wants to hold on to it. I don't know how many times you can use one of those, like, what are they called? Tone dial?
I think it was a tone dial. Yeah.
Can he play it more than once? I think it's just
like a one-use recording.
It's just one
he
time?
could play it more than once, definitely. Because
okay,
I think he could play it more than once. Good.
Because yeah, I hope that he doesn't. Don't fuck it up, Brooke, is what I'm saying. But yeah, so like him joining the crew, this is the other thing that sort of hit for me because of what we get in his, you know, anytime somebody joins the crew and it's after I have been sort of certain that we have reached the point where we have the crew we're going to have, that surprises me. But with Frankie especially, I was kind of like, I mean, that's cool. I really like Frankie, but I don't really like, because he had his own crew at one point, there was a sort of, and he was like in charge, you know, it sort of felt a little bit weird to me because he's like leaving them behind for these other people. And the reason why made sense, but it just didn't, like with Brooke, he is like starting over and finding people who are going to be his new family after being alone for so long. And that like really got to me as well. Just getting to see him. We go from the playing the song with his crew in his memory to him alone, and then to him with all of these people again singing along with him in the background. And like, they're not the same people. It's not like they just replaced his old friends and stuff, but there is like a real hopefulness to that of if you hold on long enough, things may come back around and be okay. At least sometimes the loss is what makes things more precious once you get to try again, even, you know, because you know what it's like to be without that family.
It's kind of emphasized by, you know, he has that moment looking at everyone after they're done with the song of just crying and being so happy, saying he's so happy he stuck around, so happy he kept going because it meant he got here. And it's like, that if you struggle with things that, you know, I'll say I have struggled with personally, that's a mood. That's a big mood of those moments when you're just happy that you have persevered through rough times to get where you are.
Yep.
Yeah. Also, I do love that when they have the group shots of like everyone, you know, partying and everything, and you can hear when they each focus on different crewmates, you could hear their voice actors stand out a little bit more as they're also singing this song together. Like, that's just a fun touch.
Yeah. Yeah, I like getting to meet some of the other people, and I also like to get to know the captain a little bit more. Calico, I just love his name so much. He gets sick with an illness at one point, and I was sort of wondering, because, you know, we had seen like in flashbacks the crew was killed, a lot of them in a battle, but I sort of started to be like, did I misunderstand? And it just sort of looked like a battle, but it turns out they all died because they caught this illness. But no, the illness takes him. But as far as I remember, it doesn't kill anybody else, does it? It's just the captain.
I think it did kill some other members of the crew, but they were like, if we, we don't want to take this illness take any more people, and so they caught it early on where they're like, hey, we're gonna go another way. You guys get a new ship and keep going. And Brooke is the captain now.
So the captain is definitely dead, though, right? Calico.
Oh, I mean, it's like, he went to sail the calm belt to find a doctor who might be able to cure him, which is like, the calm belt is already a death sentence.
Yeah.
But,
okay.
Like, like, he's definitely dead. Also, this was 50 years ago, I think. He's definitely dead.
Yeah, that's true, because Brooke is just immortal, basically. But although there is one part where Brooke is talking to him and Calico like grabs him by the wrist, and I was like, don't touch him. I got very agitated post COVID at seeing that they were not respecting the 6-foot personal space rule.
That, and also he had a mask on, and then it's like Brooke took the mask off of him or something. I was like, hey,
yep,
the mask on him, man.
There's a fucking reason for that, sir. Demonstrating poor understanding of mask usage, even in cartoons. Y'all. Look, I'm not perfect. God knows. But some of the ways I've seen people wearing masks, I mean, what are we even doing? Why have one? What are you doing? So I'm trying to, I just want to make sure, because we only have like the 2 episodes for this, and we have been jumping around here, and I want to make sure that I don't miss anything. But and it's also a little challenging because it jumps around in his story really heavily. So we go at one point to Brooke alone on the ship, just talking to himself and like standing on his head and dancing like, it's got a real Home Alone after he realizes his family is gone at first kind of feeling, if you're familiar. Eventually it sinks
I was getting
in.
more like Castaway. I was getting more like Castaway.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Like going mad from isolation.
Gotcha.
Like, yes, it's silly and goofy, but he just is trying to entertain himself out of the horrible, horrible state he's in.
Yeah, I see that. I forgot about Castaway. That's a movie that I feel like I should rewatch. But I also like, it is
same here.
Tough, so I'm like, how much would I enjoy rewatching it? Because it's tough, man. I don't know if I can go through losing Wilson all over again. But yeah, he's like dancing around, and at one point he sort of makes himself into a it's like he's doing the plank and has himself like leaned diagonally up against the railing and stuff. Just a weird thing. And this is the part where he dreams that they're all back, and Calico is saying, oh, you were just having a bad dream. And he is overjoyed and falls on his face and is saying to all of them, I'm so glad. I can't believe that it was just a dream. It was just a nightmare. And he lifts his head, and he had been human. Like his face was his human face when he was in the dream. And then when he raises his face, it's the skeleton face, and everything is just like overgrown and broken. And the way he just stares, and there's this long pause. That's kind of part of what I meant about the understated quality. Like, it could easily have been, I'm realizing it was just a dream, and I completely break down. But it doesn't do that. It's just this like kind of silence and a shock that feels more like, how could I have been so stupid to think that it wasn't real? Of course it's real, And then we jump straight back into a flashback again of him playing the fiddle to wake everybody up, and all of them being like, why are you doing this, dude? And I like that too, because sometimes I think I mentioned about how my dad used to wake me up playing the trumpet, and as much as I wanted to literally take his life from him in those moments, after all this time and having lost him, I can look back on that and be like, oh, Dad. And there is like a bittersweet quality to it. And it was just so many of the like moments that he is remembering and the ways that he is coping, I just really deeply understood. And we have like a montage of the travels that they all do. And there's one part here that they're talking about how they got bounties for themselves, and they're really like, you know, proud of themselves for having bounties. We get to see a really quick flash of what I think are meant to be his guys going up against a bad guy with a huge spiked mace and like blonde hair, presumably in some fight that they came out on top of. So it's this like very warlike scene. But then we jump to them waving goodbye to some people who are living in these huge tents, and they're all in winter clothes with like the snow falling. And I was like immediately making this into a Christmas thing in my head, and was just like, oh, they just went tree shopping and they're going to take it home and decorate it. We have this one dude he's really fat and wears this like pink shirt with a ruffle down the front, and he plays the cello, I guess. We see him a couple of times. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The designs for some of the members of the crew are really distinctive, and I love like their like accumulated ensemble look they have going.
Yes, definitely. There's a lot of layering happening with some of their outfits. I'm just trying to, because like the flashbacks are sort of mixed in, so I just want to make sure that I don't miss anything here. But yeah, this is when it jumps from that memory back to Frankie dancing around on the tabletop. And this is when he says about the tone dial that he wants to play this song for Laboon again. And he says something that it being recorded on my heart, but I guess you could say it's recorded in my head as well. And I was like, why is that? And then I realized, because he's keeping it literally in his head. Every time he says something that I'm like, wait, I have to remember that it's probably like a pun. Pretty much.
Yeah.
Which I would also be doing were I a skeleton. It would be puns all goddamn.
I really love the flashbacks. I really like in the flashbacks getting a lot of time with Human Brook, because I love Brook's design in the present, but it's also fun seeing how he looked when he was alive. Like his design was also great then. Like, yes. I don't know, he's just like expert level character design as always from Oda. Just like this is just like a fully realized, fun, interesting character. Like he was already a freaking 7 feet, 8 feet tall or something like that before he was even a skeleton.
Yes, humongous. There's a lot of giant people in this universe.
There are. I mean, there's literal giants who are their own like kind of people. And then there's also people that aren't giants. They're just really big humans.
Yes.
And that's never really explained or dealt with. It's like, oh yeah, some people grow to be 15 feet tall, and that's normal. That's not a giant. That's just a really tall person. And
yeah, like, okay. I feel like somebody had said in a comment that it was theorized that there was like interbreeding between giants and people, which I mean, maybe, but unless I hear anything specific about that, that just feels like people making stuff up.
That sounds like a headcanon. That's
yeah, exactly. That's like, there's I I can't remember. Are you a Song of Ice and Fire person?
Oh, 100%. Sometimes I wish I wasn't, but I am.
Fucking same. There's the whole thing with like Duncan the Tall and like potentially being giantish blood like way back in his background. And he is related to the Mountain and Sandor distantly as well, isn't he? Or is it like, I feel like it's supposed
No,
people
it was
were
Brienne.
saying I know it was Brienne. I thought it was them as well. Is it only Brienne?
As far as I can recall, I think it's only Brienne because I mean there could be a theory about the Sandor brothers, or the Clegane brothers. From what I remember, the Clegane brothers though were commoners originally who were uplifted into nobility because of Tywin picking them out.
Okay. He was like, "Ooh, they're unlikely, freakishly huge. Give me." That sounds like Tywin.
Well, it was like their grandfather raised hounds and like bred them for specific qualities. It was basically like, I could do this with my own kids.
Jesus Christ.
and Tywin was like, hired. And it's like horrifying. You're a horrifying person.
Jesus Christ.
It says a lot about you, Tywin, that you enabled this.
So glad he's dead. I'm glad you're dead.
I'm so glad he's dead. Feudalistic asshole.
So we then have this. I appreciate it as well because, like, you know, we have had a lot of suggestions with the way that Brooke is like so emotional about Laboon in even the flashbacks. There have been times where I sort of felt as if he cared for Laboon more than everybody else, and I still think that probably he had more of a connection with Laboon. But there's a moment where they're like forcing themselves to sit up after this attack, and one of the guys says, "I just have one regret," and another guy says Laboon, and I really appreciated that even in this moment these two dudes who are not Brooke are both like feeling that same burden and obligation to Laboon. And you know, it was a nice reminder that like the rest of the crew was in on that as well. It wasn't just Brooks's like private pact, which is sort of how I tend to think of it, is it being mostly about Brooke and Laboon, but it wasn't. Everybody was in on this and was fond of him, and they're like in their last moments and they're thinking of him, you know? And I don't know. I just really appreciated that.
I do too. It was a good reminder of that. I think, you know, it in a way, Brooke, it is a private pact now just because Brooke's the only one who's left.
Oh, but, for sure now.
Yeah. No, because of that, it feels that way to us. Yeah. That's pretty much everything in the first episode, I think?
Yeah, I think so. He when he starts saying like we should in our last moments we should sing a song, I also appreciated that. I sort of expected them to be like, dude, what are you talking about? But a couple of the guys start laughing and are just like, yeah, all right, why not? Like, that seems like a perfectly good way to go out. And I like that as well, that they're so like receptive to this, because they like, I guess I'm just kind of used to characters who are goofy and creative and you know, have a connection with animals to be sort of like maligned by their crewmates a lot of the time. You know, there's such a trope about them being like the one person who like sees the beauty in the world while other people are distracted or not connected or whatever. And I just really liked getting to see that like Brooke is the one who is left, and so he is the one that we personally appreciate the most, but he was with a crew full of like decent dudes, it seems like, who all had similar value systems to him. Because I think that just by virtue of him being the only one left, I think of him as being like very unique out of the crew, and that's not necessarily true.
There was a point where we like heard the captain's like, hey, join my pirate crew or something like that. And like the whole thing was you could join this crew if you have a love for music. So it gives me this feeling like
Yes.
this crew's thing, in the way that so many pirate crews have themes. Their theme from the very beginning was they're all musicians, they're all artists, they're all extremely emotional people who care about others. And that's
Mm-hmm.
like just kind of always been their jam. And so it really, in a way, that makes Brooke stand out in the sense of like, yes, he's the last one carrying on this flame from this very unique group of people who came together for that purpose.
That's right. I
Yeah,
forgot that he
such a
says
good
that.
scene.
He says also, like, we'll bring joy to children wherever we go, which was just such a weird, like, mission for pirates to have.
That is
but
like their motto.
yeah.
Yeah. It's a weird motto.
Florian says their jam. Good one. Ah, Florian. You get out of here. So yeah, that's pretty much the first of the two episodes, and then we're going on to a new crewmate, the musician Humming Brook, and developments in this one. So we come back to the present.
Which should we start with?
The thing that I want to talk about first, really, is the paper, and I can't remember what they call it because it sounded so weird that it's not sticking my.
It's called a Vivra card, which that is a very weird thing. I remember because like Vivra, like vitals, like it's there's a root word in there that has to do with life and you know, living things, and so yeah, they're bits of paper that it is possible to make out in the new world where you tie a piece of paper to your life force, and it can, if you give someone a piece of your Vivra card, it can always lead them to you. And it also gives them an idea of what state you're in. It'll tell them if you're in danger or dying.
Right. So, first of all, how does that work?
Yeah.
I would like some more details on this, please. We're just throwing this fucking thing in here. And it's not necessary that I get more details, but I want them. I would like them. I just want...
I love them too.
How does this happen? And Lola is talking about it, and it's just like, you don't know what that is, and somebody has to be like, nobody outside of like where we grew up has these. And are you born with, like, do you just get the one, and you have to be super careful about how you parcel it out?
I don't know if you can have more than one, but they said you take a piece of paper and like a fingernail or something, like a bit of a fingernail, to a specific shop in the new world, and they will make you a Vivra card using that paper. It's like they need a bit of you to like tie your life essence to the card. So they're a thing you buy and they make.
So you can get probably more than one and just like hand them out like candy, I would guess. That's pretty cool. So the way that the thing that we find out here is that paper that Ace gave Luffy 200 episodes ago at this point,
yeah,
is a Vivra card, and he said to Luffy when he gave it to him, this will like reunite us someday. And Luffy, he sewed it to like the inside of his hat. I can't remember where he was.
Like stuck it in the band.
So he pulls it out
inside the band of his hat.
Right. And it's smoldering at the edges. It's not like on fire exactly, but it looks like it had recently been on fire. I'll say it that way, up until a second ago. Which everybody is like, well, that's not awesome, dude. That's an indicator that his life is like in some real danger. You probably want to go and help him. Which I, of course, assumed would be our next leg of our journey. Instead, Luffy is just like, nah, he'll be fine.
I would say it feels like he gave it a little bit of thought first, but he does come down on pretty quickly on like, no, my brother's fine. He's my big brother. He can handle himself. He says that like he'd be upset with me if I went to try and help him. Like it'd be embarrassing if his little brother tried to save him. So he'll handle it and we'll meet up later. Is his attitude, which is like, I mean, that's a lot of faith to have in your brother, but
it's the sort of thing that like I believe that Luffy knows his brother well enough to like make this judgment call. So it's not even that I think that Luffy isn't correct. It's more that it felt super out of character for Luffy to me. As somebody who has historically not cared if people have actively told him to not save them. I'm looking at you, Luffy, with Robin standing next to me, and I am pointing at Robin. She actively was like, don't save me, stop it. And you were like, I can't hear you because I'm saving you so hard. The fact that he is so willing to be like, nah, my brother wouldn't like it. That did not feel like Luffy to me. That was a weird response. And I wish that I knew Ace better as a viewer so that I could understand where he's coming from on this a little bit better myself. Because like I said, I trust that Luffy knows him enough to say this, but I don't know Ace well enough, I feel like.
So I have a thought on that. And I'm going to tell you, this is just a thought. I don't know if this is the real reason. This is my speculation on the inside of Luffy's head, which is always is an exceptionally dark place to look into, and you don't know what you're going to find in there. I would say that the difference is that Robin and Nami also like pushed him away and said, "I don't want you to help me or save me" a lot in her arc back in East Blue. Mm-hmm. The difference in those cases are those are people he's entrusted onto his crew, and with that, I think Luffy sees that as a like, well, we have made a pact. We are on a crew together. I am going to help you, even if you tell me not to. His brother is on a crew. He is on Whitebeard's crew, one of the most powerful pirates in the world. He is not Luffy's responsibility. He doesn't owe that debt to his brother. In addition to just feeling like his brother take care of himself, he's probably assuming like, Whitebeard can take care of him. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would say the difference is it's a different how different people are categorized differently in Luffy's brain. Mm-hmm. Luffy has a very weird way of looking at the world, and I'm doing my best to make sense of it. But that's my guess. But yeah, there was that stuff about Ace, so that's worrying. That he's not doing very well after that fight with Blackbeard. Yeah. And then also, we also with the Viper card stuff, Lola gave Nami a piece of her mother's Viper card because apparently her mother is a very powerful pirate in the New World, and she thinks, hey, maybe having this with like my signature on it will be like a boon to you. Mm-hmm. And also, I don't like have a huge like positive, like I'm not like, yeah, Lola's great, but I'm like, this is nice. It felt like a nice, cute little friendship moment between her and Nami that I appreciated.
Agree. Yeah. I'm just really glad because like the way that things had started out, I was so sure that I was going to get this like weird rivalry thing. And the fact that that was subverted, just, I think that I wouldn't be as enchanted with Lola if it weren't for the fact that I was like expecting the worst out of what was going to happen with her. Mm-hmm. And in terms of like what you're saying about the way that Luffy sees things, I am willing to accept that because you're right. Like his priority set doesn't make a lot of sense to me in many ways. So I'm definitely able to like see, it's just such a strange thing because I'm so used to in any story, like I can't even really think of one in which this isn't the case other than One Piece at the moment. And I'm sure there's one out there, but at this point I'm drawing a blank. Anytime that somebody's family is being fucked with, that person usually sets everything aside to deal with their family being fucked with. Even if it's somebody that they had a bad relationship with in the past, it doesn't ultimately matter, even when I think it should matter. Even when I'm like, they have screwed you so many times, you need to let them go and suffer the consequence. It doesn't matter. They're always written as being like, yeah, but family, for she's my sister, she's my mother. And I'm like, well, they don't seem to be real able to remember that when you need them to remember that. So maybe you should just let it lie. So I'm so used to like family being the ultimate line in the sand for any character. And the fact that he is just not only willing to like be like, oh, I'm sure he'll be able to take care of himself, but also like finding out that he has a dad and a grandpa out there as well that he never talks about, that we have like run into one of them by accident and the other one swooped in and like helped him out at Logtown, but then we never saw him again. That is the part that I find so bizarre, I think, about this universe, is because we don't know Luffy's history. All these like people who would be important in another character's life, they're kind of acquaintances for him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Luffy, when he was told about his dad, he didn't even know that Dragon is his dad.
Right.
He wasn't even aware.
Yep.
In his mind, they've never even met before, as far as he can remember. Like, this is a stranger to him completely. And you're right. I think that's one of the interesting things about One Piece is we get these, these digs into each of the crew members' backstories. And we got some Luffy backstory at the very, very start, but that didn't include any of his family stuff.
Mm-mm.
And so we have a lot of these big blank spots of his life that are just kind of there for us to wonder about and speculate about at this point in the story, where you have to wonder, why isn't he like that, like deep into his family? And I don't know if it's just how he was raised. I mean, his time with his grandfather seems to have been mixed at best. But is it that? Is it just his own weird priorities in general of how he sees the world and what he thinks is important, what he doesn't think is important? I don't know, but it is a really fascinating deviation because, like you said, in so many stories, family. I mean, you recently-ish went through Fullmetal Alchemist's Brotherhood, and the brothers, the family thing is so huge and central to that show in so many ways. And I know of people who've seen it and gone, I don't have any siblings. I cannot. I personally, watching media like this that focuses so heavily on like a sibling relationship, I can't relate to that at all. Like, I can try to understand, but I don't. I'm never going to understand like that deep connection idea. And yeah, it is interesting having a something that subverts that. Where for Luffy, his family is not the most important thing. The most important thing is his dream, and then his crew, and then his basic needs like eating and sleeping.
Yeah.
And then everything else is just kind of like
Even with Zoro, we haven't really seen any of his family either. We saw him stumbling into a town and getting training to become this amazing swordsman, but we have no idea what his family was like or where he was coming from. None of that information. And like with Luffy, all the relatives that we have seen of his are male. So still no idea if like his mother is still alive. I don't remember him mentioning anything. Wasn't there a woman that was coming after him when he was in the bar with redhead? What's his name?
Yes, she I think she like ran the bar. I can't remember her name, but
okay,
yeah, she
so
like
she
was a
wasn't
motherly
like a
figure to him,
guardian
but
or
she
anything.
wasn't his. No,
Huh.
I mean, not officially, I don't think, but she watched after him. Where we are in the story, we have had no mention thus far. Where you are right now, there's been no mention of any family, any mother for Luffy. There's also been no mention. You bring up Zoro. There's also been no mention of any family for Sanji. We just saw him on a ship, working as a kid. Let's see, we had also. Nami, we went into her family, and we went to Usopp's family. Chopper kicked out of his deer clan people. We don't know what Frankie's family's like. I mean, we know the Frankie family, that was his like gang of thugs,
right?
But we didn't know like where the hell are they might have mentioned his parents, but I don't recall.
Yeah, I don't remember because he gets adopted by
before he became a pirate.
Oh yeah,
by
Brooke,
Tom
no.
the Fishman. Yeah.
I didn't think about Sanji because you know what I'm realizing now, and this is so funny when this happens. You ever have this where you don't realize that you've made a massive assumption, and then once somebody is like, "Why do you think that?" You're like, "Well, obviously because of this thing that I realize now I made up." Oh, I don't know where I got this, but I had it in my head that Sanji's family, like his parents, brought him to this like restaurant on the ship and abandoned him and bailed. I don't know where I just like made this up, that they just bounced and left him and he had to figure out how to work his way up through the kitchen to like get by. Like this was like an Oliver Twist situation, except Oliver was actually an orphan. I don't know where I got that from, but that's what's been in my head, was that he was like purposefully abandoned. Zoro, what I am imagining for Zoro, which is not an actual assumption, it's an actual imagining. His dad was not tough enough for him. And he was like, I am not going to learn what I need to learn from you. So I'm going to run away from home and find somebody who is actually worth a damn to teach me some things because you suck. Like, I see Zoro as being like just way over the top macho as an infant, to the point where his own father was like, lighten up a little bit. And Zoro was like, lighten this up, and just left in the middle of the night.
That's very funny.
You can't say it.
On
I
the
can
topic
tell
of the
that you're not. Trish is clearly sitting on a lot of comments right now.
To get back on the topic of the episode, there's the scene of Brooke going to the grave that Usopp and Frankie made for his crew, and Chopper got the flowers, and he takes special care to thank Chopper for the flowers, which I thought you would appreciate.
Not only do I love that he specifically thanks Chopper, like everybody involved, but yeah, I think Chopper mentions I picked out the flowers because he had originally only thanked Usopp and Frankie. And then when he mentions the flowers and Brooke specifically thanks him, in the dub, Chopper says like, knock it off, you phony bastard. You're not gonna suck up to me by saying thank you or something like that, which I get that it's supposed to be like this cute moment of like, I'm totally delighted, but I can't. But the idea of that attitude accompanied by the words, you phony bastard, like that's just not the language one would actually use in that situation. It feels very aggressive. So even though Chopper's being animated with that cute, like kind of swirly thing that they do with him, I was just like, Chopper! I was a little shocked at his language and wanted to be like, you need to tone it down, sir.
Well, that's a reoccurring thing for Chopper, is he does that a lot. Whenever anyone compliments him, he does that kind of like, oh shucks kind of pose, but then he insults them really harshly through his words, which, like, it doesn't fit his personality in general, but it just makes me think of Dr. Kureha, the witch doctor who helped teach him. Like, that's probably her influence. Just like, oh yeah, insult the shit out of people. Like, who gives a hell?
He does, like, but it's never that harsh. I felt like phony bastard was taking it an extra step. Usually he'll just be like, oh, shut up, you stupid. Which, like, that is a thing that I'll say, like, affectionately to my husband. Occasionally he'll make a joke and I'll just shake my head and just be like, God, you are so stupid. And then he'll giggle hysterically to himself because he knows that I thought that was actually funny. But if I ever was just like, Owen, you phony bastard, he would be like, what the hell? What is that? Where is that coming from? I don't remember what it was, like years ago at this point, like probably like a good 12 years ago. And there was some podcast I was listening to where a guy like made a comment and his co-host said, "You are a sham and a hell beast." And that like lodged itself in my brain, and that is a thing I think all the time now. But I never say it out loud because without context, it sounds like I'm being incredibly aggressive for like no reason. Calling somebody a sham. I mean, that's harsh.
Yeah.
I just like so, and this
anyway
fucking monument. It's like a ship
that
has a what looks like the lion's head of the Sunny on it. I don't remember what his ship actually looked like, but did the figurehead look like this, or is this supposed to be? I thought that this was like a nod to who built it, like Frankie being like, "Oh, we'll include some of the Sunny just to like sort of it just signal that we had a hand in this." But it's the Sunny like lion mane, but then there's like a skull in the middle of it with horns. And I don't know, like, I don't remember at all.
The skull with horns was the Rumbar Pirates like thing on at least their first ship.
Okay.
So I think the Sunny, the other thing is a reference to the Sunny, but yeah, their figurehead specifically was a skull with horns. Like it almost looked like a cow skull or something.
Yeah, which I thought was weird because like their whole thing is music. I thought there would be something referencing that. I don't get what this is. Everybody's got like pretty strong thematic ties between their gimmick and the symbol on their ship, and this one I didn't understand. I also don't understand Rumbar either, where that name comes from, if there's anything there. Okay, I just wanted to check because you know.
I just had their page open on the wiki, so I'm gonna check. But
okay, yeah.
The first
Gus says cowbell,
a combination
maybe.
of two words.
Okay.
So it's rumba, which refers to a family of musical rhythms and dance styles that originate in Africa, and then combining that with lumbar, aka the section of bones and spinal cord which is part of the skeletal system. So it's another skeleton pun. That was the point.
That is a stretch and a half, Oda.
It's a stretch and a half. It is a stretch and a half.
I don't feel like that works, but it's not important, so it's fine. But Oda is all over the place. Sometimes he'll do things and I'm like, oh, that's fun. And then he'll do stuff and I'm like, why did you bother? Who was going to get that? I'm half convinced that what you just read me is also just headcanon. That's just like completely made up.
I think it could be. It did end. It ended in a citation needed. And so I'm guessing they probably did.
Oh, that's good.
But yeah, like the monument is kind of silly looking, but I do really appreciate, like, you know, Brooke is like taking this moment very like he's being very quiet and sincere in his appreciation, and then everyone else just like, all right, we're gonna go. You chill out here, I guess. And it is this like lovely, like I could get like, yeah, to leave him to kind of grieve a little bit.
Yeah.
And then Zorro shows up, who's finally awake.
It was so unexpected. I thought that his waking up was going to be a lot more of a production. And the fact that he just like strolls on up and he's like awake now, I was not expecting this at all. And he is very respectful I wasn't sure how he was going to behave here, But yeah, Brooke says, in case you haven't heard, I officially joined the crew. And Zorro says, well, that's too bad for you. This is a crew that can be a real handful.
I think that's an easy thing for Zorro to say, when Zorro is a good handful and a half himself.
Oh my God.
A lot of the time.
That felt very innuendo-y, but I'm going to not mention what I was thinking at all.
I would never.
Just not even. I didn't even say it. So I'm very mature, and everybody should appreciate me.
Said that about Zorro. I would have said that about Sanji. Come on, I have a brand here.
A handful and a half, you say? Well. But yeah, so he comes and sits with him. I always enjoy, by the way, I know I've talked about these, but the little interstitials where they would normally put a commercial, they don't have those on the Netflix one. And then going to Funimation, I had forgot they existed and they come back. And the one for Zorro is him like yawning widely. And then when he like finishes yawning, there's like a tear at the corner of his eye, like he just woke up and his eyes are sort of gummy. Not what I would expect. I would think that Zorro's little interested, it would be like him fighting and being a badass. And I don't know why, but I really enjoy the fact that he just was asleep, because really, if you look at the ratio of how much time he spends sleeping to fighting, the sleeping is a lot higher. So that makes sense. And I don't know, I just wanted to mention that because this was the interstitial right after their little scene together. Oh my God, I forgot, when we come back, Brooke's got an interstitial now. You guys, I think this is the first one.
Oh, I don't remember what it is.
Oh my God. Okay, so he's running on the surface of the water really fast, like a Looney Tune.
Oh, yes.
Which I don't know that I knew that was a power of his, but I guess I got a little bit spoiled by the interstitial there.
It's come up at least once or twice this arc, but it's okay to forget. It comes up rarely, and the idea is supposed to be because he's just a ghost animating bones, he's light enough that he can run over water, which doesn't make
I remember
a lot of
that now.
sense.
Yes, because he like runs from the Sunny to Thriller Bark. Right, I forgot about that. What a weird. Okay, yeah, that doesn't make sense, but sure.
It makes no sense, but listen, it's a fun idea.
And you know how like it goes from the character, and then it's like you're looking through a telescope, and then it slides down to like an object of theirs. So for Zorro, it's his swords. For Brooke, and this is my favorite out of all of them for what will be very obvious reasons, we've got an intricately carved wooden straight back chair with a violin and bow resting on it. And the chair is sitting by a table with a truly gorgeous tea set and a full cup of tea and what looks like some cakes, sliced bread, and like a 3-layer, like maybe mille-feuille or Napoleon type pastry with like a bunch of frosting and fruit on the top. So, Brooke, favorite character officially now because of his interstitial. I would like to go to there. Thank you. Oh, that looks great. You guys, I'm tempted to just take a screenshot of this, but it's going to have all of the writing from the episode over it, ruining it. I need you guys to find me a good, like, clean picture of this, and I'll make it like a background image on my iPad or something. So go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, but so Zorro came up because he's burying his sword.
Right.
He's grieving the loss of the sword that broke in I think Eddie's lobby is when the sword broke or something.
That sounds
I think
right.
it was last
Yeah.
arc, but
I think
maybe
it was
not.
like
Yeah.
somebody who was wielding sand or rust.
It was a rust. It was a rust ability, and it broke his sword. Yeah.
Oh, that was so freaky.
And it was
I like
the
that.
sword was important to him too, and so he,
Yeah.
he's giving it a little kind of own little burial here. Trying to think, because we started off with the beaver card stuff. They want to go to Mermaid, Fishman Island next.
Right.
Yep. That's
I
the
forgot about
planned next stop.
They're talking about how mermaids don't wear panties. I forgot about Brooke's unfortunate.
I know.
Maybe she'll show me her
I
panties.
know.
Brooke, can you just stop it with that? It's just truly.
Could you stop it? Could Sanji stop it? Could it just that whole thing just gone?
All of them, their noses start bleeding.
That whole thing. I do just appreciate that all that's happening, and then it just cuts over to Tom. Just goes, mermaids have a bottom half that's just fish. Like,
yes,
she's just like so befuddled by their interest in this entire topic.
Yep, agreed.
And I'm like, see, I know you're not as big a fan of Robin, but that's like why I enjoy Robin. Is she occasionally has dry moments. I don't know what's wrong with the rest of you, but okay.
There's a Futurama episode, I think, where like Fry falls in love with a mermaid and they go to have sex and he's thinking mammalish sex, but she's like, yeah, I'm going to lay my eggs and then you'll just like come on top of them. And he's like, I'm going to
I remember that.
And that winds up, they go, I feel like Fry says something to them later about like, we realized we loved each other, but we weren't in love. And somebody just goes, problems in the bedroom, really loud. Oh, I still remember that. That's
I remember that.
That's a good mermaid joke. But yeah, this dude as well, he's one of the Risky brothers. Is that? You know the ones I'm talking about? But he's the one who's like talking to them about what mermaids are. He's not joining them though. He's part of Lola's crew, I guess. So Florian says, headcanon for Brooke, he has been so desocialized by being alone for like 50 years, so he does not know how to talk to women anymore. I want to believe that, Florian, but I just have a really bad feeling that he is just like this. I want to think that you're right. But I don't want to get, like, if that were true, then it would follow that as he becomes socialized again, he will stop saying things like this. And I don't have a lot of hope that's going to happen. I just feel like I'm going to have to put up with it, which I don't love, but what are you going to do? Jessica says, when we first met Brooke, he was drinking tea. I forgot about that. That's right. When he was just like singing to himself, drinking a cup of tea as they passed him in the fog. That was a hell of a first meeting too. I forgot about that. Thank you, Jessica. Okay, so yeah, this is when the Beaver card thing is introduced, and we have everybody thinking that we're going to go and rescue Ace, and that is definitely not what Luffy wants to do. And also, as we're departing Thriller Bark, all of the other crew is saying, like, you know, maybe we'll meet again someday. So I'm sort of interested to see if we do ever run into them again. I'm also very curious whether or not Lola's mom is going to turn out to be anybody we know, or if it's going to be a completely brand new person. I'm going to go with probably brand new, because the show doesn't seem to want to do the, like, everything is super interconnected thing all the time that some shows and series fall prey to. I won't name any names, but it's definitely a thing.
I know exactly what you mean. There's something with some writers where they're like, the more tightly knit and the more interconnected things are, the better things are. And I'm always like, I'm much more like the what's the word? Like the maximalism, not minimalism. Don't keep cutting. Just make your world expansive and beautiful and richly full of a bunch of different stuff. People was like, oh, well, it's a coincidence that blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, there's billions of people in this world. Coincidences fucking happen. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Coincidences do in fact happen. And it's not bad storytelling. Like, well, why did this character go here at this time? I don't know, because they felt like it.
Because they wanted to get some new body wash, and it just happened to be sold there. Who knows? Who cares? But yeah, I completely agree
on your theory.
Oh yeah,
I can't say anything about your theory. But I will say, I will ask you about rather the way that the episode ends is with this like, oh yeah, a lot of ships have always disappeared in the Florian Triangle, and it happened long before Thriller Bark was ever there. And you just see this horrified, like this outline of something in the mist. It's like, maybe it's a good thing the mists are there so the people there aren't aware of what's near them. And it's like, what does that mean though?
What the hell? Because like I'm trying to remember, it was right before they went to Skypiea, I think, that they saw those giant shadows, and it turned out to be like a weird trick of light, right?
That
through like
it turned
shadows.
Out to be like, yeah, it was shadows of people on the white sea being sent down to the cloud layer. So
right, okay.
Giants.
Because I was like, we've seen something like this, very sort of intimidating, and then it turned out to kind of be nothing, even though in the moment I was like, what is happening? It wasn't really anything. It just was like, oh, that's a weird optical illusion. But this, we've got like 3 what almost look like chimneys, like peaks that are sticking up straight out of the water. And what they look like to me are like tree trunks. And one of them has these 2 bright red, what you want to say are eyes because of the way that they're set, but it may not be. It might just be a trick to make you think that it's eyes. I don't know. And they're not all the same height. The one with the eyes is the one in front middle. And I say front, it looks like it's closest, but maybe not. And then there's one next to it and further back, and I can't tell if they're actually shorter or if it's just that the way the fog is falling makes them look like they're shorter. But yeah, they're just like hidden by the fog. So we get this little aside with the voiceover guy who makes an appearance for the first time in a while, I think. And then no further explanation as our friends like sail away from it. And I have to assume that this is going to eventually come up again. But I do find it really funny that it seems like we're being told this and then going to leave it behind for a while. And who knows when the hell we're coming back to it, which is like how the show operates a lot of the time. They'll introduce an idea or a character and then just drop it for 100 episodes. And then boom, bring them back again. And you're like, oh, I literally forgot all about it. I don't know what to make of that. Genuinely no idea.
Yeah, I don't either. It really just makes me think of just how wide and expansive the One Piece world is. It's, I think, up there with among fantasy as like one of the most like hugely scoped fantasy settings in a good way of just, you know, we're spending all this time, most of the series thus far has been on the Grand Line. The Grand Line is just like a bit of water on the equator, basically. It's just the water around the equator, and we're having all of these adventures here. There's this whole rest of this world, and we get little bits. They mention with the grave thing, you know, Brook is originally from the West Blue, which is opposite end of the world where we started in East Blue, and so is Thriller Bark. Thriller Bark itself is from the West Blue, which he mentioned, and that he felt it was nice that his fellow countrymen could be buried in soil of their homeland, which was like a nice, cute,
right? I forgot about that
idea there. But yeah, it's just
I would feel a way about them being buried there. Not the place I would want, but I get it.
Yeah. But yeah, it's this. They could come back to these Florian Triangle creatures, or they could not, and I could see either possibility being, equally likely just because this is One Piece. It's a big world. Some of it we're not. I don't know if you've heard, the manga's kind of close. We're on the final arc apparently right now, or something close to it, and so it's not going to be able to wrap up every single little referenced piece of world building at this point.
I didn't know that there was any end in sight, so that is really surprising to me.
I mean,
okay.
Who knows? This ending arc could take another 3 or 4 years, but still, we're in the home stretch.
Man.
And it feels like it. Trust me, it feels like we're in the home stretch. But yeah, that's the episodes. Did you have anything you want to talk about otherwise about the arc or the, I don't know,
not
One Piece
really
in general stuff?
The only thing, and I don't know that this, like, because we've seen a little bit of the Sunny, but not all of it. We haven't seen, for example, where everybody sleeps, which I know that this is not hugely important to a lot of people, but it's something that I'm always very preoccupied by. And if you listen to the Doctor Who episodes, you'll hear me like really wanting to know what it's like to live in the TARDIS. And we never really get good details on that, which always bums me out. But I really want to know if everybody does get their own bedroom. And if so, what does Brooks's room look like? Because I want to see. I have to imagine it's like very intricately carved in the style of his little, that little moment. But I want to see more of the Sunny. I'm just going to say that right now because it's so huge. And it seems like, to a degree, things are being kept from us on purpose so that we can bring it out as a surprise. But I want to get to explore it a little bit more. And I am going to go back and watch some of the episodes that were filler, where apparently it becomes a submarine, or there is like a submarine that got launched, which I missed. So I'm looking forward to getting to see that. But that's not really a comment on this episode. It's just now that he has joined, I'm wondering if we're going to get more of a tour. Maybe not, but we'll see.
I have a similar complaint about this show and Doctor Who, honestly. As someone who actually does, personally, character flaw, I like Doctor Who. I do wish I got to see more of the TARDIS. I do wish, I don't like the Thousand Sunny personally that much. I kind of preferred the Mary, but I do wish we had more downtime between episodes of just the crew hanging out. And like, what's their downtime like? We don't get enough crew downtime.
That's what I live for, the downtime in stories.
Same.
In everything.
Gus says Oda drew the floor plan of the Sunny in SBS and the Mary 2 earlier. Well, that's neat. Cool that we have the floor plan. Maybe someone can post that in the Discord. Also, on that topic, I did want to bring up to you, there's a bunch of cover art stories from the manga that don't get adapted into the anime at all. There's a couple that we haven't had you go through. We probably recommend reading them sometime soon because, it is possible, like with the Helm Eppo Kobe stuff and Luffy's grandfather one, it's possible these things can become relevant.
Gotcha.
But yeah, just one of us will probably send you that soon.
Okay, cool.
I thought I would deliver that onto you as, from the One Piece crew. That's a thing we've been talking about.
I also want to mention, did you watch the trailer for the live action?
I have watched the trailer. I am trying to, I try to never get excited about trailers because trailers are, by their nature, deception, and
true.
Like, they're never going to really show you what the finished product is going to be like. It's not possible. And so I try not to hold too much stock in them, but like, I'm tentatively excited. I think the casting is on point. I love the casting top to bottom. I think some of it feels a little weird, but I'm also like, well, yeah, I'm used to this being in cartoon. This is in live action. The transition's going to feel a little odd. I'm willing to give it a shot. The sets look nice. It seems like they're doing a lot of things practical where they're able to. I'm going to give it a shot. Yeah,
I'm pretty excited about it. And it's been commissioned, for those listening who didn't know, the whole first season. So I'll be watching it. I think it doesn't come out until August, and I think I actually start it in August, so it won't be too long after. It might be September. But either way, it won't be too long of a wait between when it drops and when I get to cover it. So I'm really excited about it because I was sort of expecting that it was going to come out and I wasn't going to be able to watch it. And there's a possibility, I guess, very slight, that like there's spoilers for later stuff in the main series that they decided to just drop into the live action as like Easter egg stuff, or maybe they're telling some stories out of order. I don't know, but hopefully not. I don't see any reason to expect that. Just sometimes they'll do that with things that are huge series. But yeah, I'm pretty stoked about getting to cover that. So anybody who's listening who wants to hear me talk about it, you'll get to. It's coming. And Zorro is bae as hell. Oh my God. Lord of mercy. Also, Sanji.
I really love Sanji's pretty bae. I also really like the actor they got for Usopp, because Usopp is also one of my personal baes. And then,
yes.
Speaking of, I did want to say, while I'm not the biggest fan of this arc in general, Usopp, I'm actually really behind on listening to the episodes. Since moving, I haven't had a lot of time for listening to podcasts, except for A Song of Ice and Fire, which is the one thing I'm staying on top of. You and Rashawn on that one. But so I don't know what your reaction to it was, but the Usopp Perona fight is to me another one of the highlights of this arc. Like, that one was so fun. And yep. I don't know why it gives me so much joy, but the whole thing that her power doesn't work on him because he's basically already depressed and has low self-esteem is just so. It was
genius.
Up,
it was
funny.
Very genius. Yeah, I loved that. That being like the one time that he's like, "Trust me, I can handle her. You guys go on ahead." Of course, it's the depression monster. Yeah, and then eventually
I fight that every day when I wake up.
And the ghosts get depressed themselves. And they stop and like hang their heads, and he's had the same effect on them that they're supposed to have on him. That was so good. I loved it so much. Anyway, all right. It's time to wrap up. Is there anything else that you wanted to say before we finish this episode off?
I guess before we finish it off, I mentioned this before we started, doing the podcast part. But I'm actually a regular podcaster now. If you're at all interested at RPG video games, check out RPG Book Club. We're currently covering the video game Skies of Arcadia. I'm there every week-ish whenever we do record. So yeah,
awesome.
Plug,
Say the name again.
RPG Book Club.
RPG Book Club. Okay, cool. All right. Well, everybody look for Trish and look for me again on Thursday. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.